You knew Jeffrey Epstein, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I did. We flew Bill Clinton.
The Chris Tucker that we got now is Epstein Island Chris Tucker. Oh, not Smokey.
Not Smokey. They got Smokey in the motherfucking pictures too. No wonder this man gave his life to Christ. We ain't about to get Rush Hour 4 anymore. They about to rush his ass to prison. Let me stop because I don't know if he did anything, but fool. Katt Williams did.
After years of denying any connection to Epstein, Chris Tucker is now facing renewed scrutiny after Katt Williams publicly called him out, accusing him of being involved in questionable activity linked to Epstein Island. It's hard not to notice how Chris once stood at the top of Hollywood as one of the highest-paid actors, only to fade into the background over time. Many believe his sudden pivot toward church life and openly embracing a pro-Christian image was an attempt to distance himself from past rumors, but that strategy doesn't seem to be working. Katt Williams isn't holding back, and things escalated even further when authorities reportedly released portions of related files, making the situation look even worse for Chris. For anyone who hasn't been following closely, buckle up, because this situation runs much deeper than what was previously reported. When Chris quietly stepped away from the industry, he never clearly explained why he disappeared. He even turned down the chance to return to his iconic role in Friday, despite fans desperately wanting to see him back on screen. Instead, he shut it down completely, showing zero interest in revisiting his former spotlight.
I know Cube want to do another one because Cube, of course, it's like, he kind of created Fridays, and I was in the first one. Yeah. And Cube, after I did the first Fridays back then, I never thought about doing sequels. I always wanted to do a good job and keep moving to the next movie. So Cube asked me back in, I think it was 96 or 97. He's Chris, we want to do another Fridays, man. And I was just like, nah, I don't want to do another Fridays. I want to do like Eddie Murphy and them did. I want to do Money Talks. I did Money Talks, and then eventually did Rush Hour. I said, I don't want to do another. And he said, what? You sure? I was like, nah, I don't want to do another. So he couldn't believe it, but he kept moving, and he got Mike Epps, and they went and did another one, and it was great. He did two of them, and they were great.
Despite Chris claiming he no longer wanted to do sequels, that explanation didn't add up. Not long after turning down a return to Friday, he went on to star in Rush Hour and continued with Rush Hour 2, 3, and even 4. Clearly, sequels weren't the real issue. Something else was going on that he didn't want to admit. That's when people began digging deeper, trying to uncover why he seemed so determined to distance himself from Hollywood. The main theory that surfaced was that his shift toward religion played a role. Chris himself added fuel to that narrative when he said one reason he avoided returning to Friday was because many people on set smoked heavily, which made him uncomfortable.
Has Chris Tucker not talked about being in next Friday? Because I know it was Mike Epps, but...
We wanted him. He turned it down. Yeah, we wanted to pay him $12 million to do that movie.
What?
And he turned it down. He said it was for religious reasons. He didn't want to cuss, and he didn't want to smoke weed on camera.
But this is where things take a wild turn. New information suggests that Chris didn't step away from Hollywood solely for religious reasons, despite what is claimed. According to growing speculation, his disappearance may actually be linked to alleged ties to Epstein. Chris Tucker's name reportedly appears in Epstein-related documents and flight records, with claims that he was aboard Epstein's private jet back in 2002, the same aircraft used to travel to and from the infamous island. Chris and his camp attempted to manage the fallout by saying the flight was part of a humanitarian mission to Africa centered on AIDS awareness and charity, alongside figures like former President Bill Clinton and Kevin Spacey. Still, many people weren't convinced. Bringing up Clinton only raised more eyebrows, especially after recent photos surfaced showing him at Epstein's mansion. To many observers, he looked far too comfortable to be unaware of what was really going on there. What makes this harder to believe is that Chris was reportedly around these individuals during that time, yet he wants people to think he had no clue about any wrongdoing. When questioned about the situation later on, his nervous energy was hard to miss, leaving many unconvinced by his explanations. He could barely keep his composure, stumbling over his words and desperately trying to downplay the situation as if it were no big deal.
You knew Jeffrey Epstein, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. we flew Bill Clinton and a lot of different that was a humanitarian trip to Africa.
Yeah.
And I met him on that trip because it was his plane. I didn't know who plane we was getting on, but it was a whole bunch of dignitary people. We was with a delegation. And yeah, I met him and you don't know people, what they do in their private lives. So yeah.
But tell me this, Chris. You was on this private plane, and you could tell that it was a private plane because they called it, was it Lolita Express?
Oh yeah, it was a private plane. Yes. Oh yes.
But wait a minute. You didn't never go to that island, did you?
No. I don't know where that thing is.
One commenter
person's-
questioned how he expected to explain everything and still receive forgiveness, while another pointed out that it suddenly made sense why he became so religious after Friday.
Chris Tucker, you little freaky bitch. Please tell me this is AI. Please tell me this is AI, bruh. Please tell me this is Ellen Iverson. Say, Moby, this is what you need to talk about, the fentanyl face hoe. This is what you want to talk about. Bitch, talk about this.
Another reason people didn't believe Chris's humanitarian explanation is that, even before all of this resurfaced, Katt Williams had already accused him of being involved with Epstein. At the time, many brushed it off and claimed Katt was just hating or acting out of jealousy. Turns out, Katt may have simply been ahead of the curve. Back in January 2024, during his appearance on Shannon Sharp's Club Shay Shay podcast, Katt brought up Chris while talking about the possibility of a new Friday movie. He said the Chris people see today isn't the same person he once knew, adding that if he didn't know him personally, he might also be among those who believe Chris is genuinely a good guy. What Katt was getting at. But now it's all starting to make sense, and it's not looking good for Chris. The fact that he felt the need to respond to the situation less than 24 hours after the Epstein files dropped shows just how rattled he is. And the scary part? This may not even be the end of it. New portions of the Epstein files keep coming out every few days. If more information involving Chris surfaces, he might want to prepare people in advance, because if it turns out his connection goes beyond the so-called humanitarian work, it's over for him. As expected, the public had plenty to say. One person commented that Chris should stop lying, pointing out that he appears in multiple photos, not just one, suggesting he knew exactly what was going on. They added that if they were heading to Africa and the devil's private jet was the only option, they wouldn't get on it, especially if they could afford their own plane. Another commenter added that truly innocent people don't rush out to defend themselves the way Chris did. And laughing it off in a situation like this? Innocent people caught up in something so disturbing would be furious. Now, I want to hear from you. What's your take on Chris being exposed for his alleged involvement with Epstein? Do you really buy that he was on that plane purely for humanitarian reasons? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to click here to watch another juicy, chaotic video.